start.
Will. Okay, perfect.
Okay. Well, welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us today for Business Transition Series. This is the third part of our 4-part series. And the purpose of the series, is to, help business owners with their succession plans, whether they're starting the business, growing the business, or today our topic being really thinking about exiting the business or being at that point where they're trying to get serious about it. And what are some of the things that we need to be thinking about around exit planning strategies for our business and for our life, really, right? Because a lot of us have this business as our baby and as part of our life, and it's brought a lot of joy and a lot of stress, and we put a lot of blood, sweat, and tears into it. So how do we make sure we successfully get through that transition? So my name is Samantha Haloka. I am a wealth management advisor with Northwestern Mutual, and I have had the pleasure of running my business alongside these wonderful professional women that are able to join us here on the panel. So I'm going to ask some questions of our professional panel and introduce them as I go. If you have any questions for the group or for us, please do just put them in the chat, and we will answer those towards the end or as we go here. So it's going to be more of a discussion, and but please feel free to participate and help us make this as fruitful as possible for everyone. So I'm going to start with a question for Mandy Rollins. So Mandy is a leadership and performance coach, supporting successful physicians, attorneys, and business owners navigate transitions in their careers and their lives. Her clients report improved performance, stronger relationships, and increased feelings of well-being working with her. And I just know from knowing her for so long, as well as doing projects like this with her, I learn something all the time from her. So definitely want to get her insight on this transition. So Mandy, when business owners are in that transition, a lot of times they may be feeling some emotions around not only just letting go of the business, but also emotions about themselves and their identity. So do you ever run across, a business owner who may feel like they're losing their identity if they sell their business, or not know who they really are going to be after that? Can you kind of help us think through that a little?
Yes. So first of all, thank you, Sam. And also this is like the kind of this question is, gosh, once I sell my business, who am I now? I used to be this business owner and now I'm not, or I won't be for long. And first of all, I just want to say this is a completely normal concern and normal feeling. Like, even if you've done all of the planning and preparation that all of you are going to be talking about today in the panel, it's a question that many of my clients are asking themselves. So Sam, as you said, as business owners, we put our blood, sweat, and tears into our business. You made the analogy to a baby, but owning your own business, it is like having a baby. You dream about it, you create it, you grow it, you cultivate it over the years and the decades. And making the decision to sell or give that up can feel like a loss. And actually, it is a loss. And not all loss is bad. So I would, first of all, encourage you to grieve that loss that you're going through. And don't pretend that everything's okay, or, I'm just going to forget about that and I'm going to look to the future. There's time to look to the future later. So there's a 3-step framework that I typically take my clients through as they face any big transition like this. And the first step is really to stop, notice, and then purposefully acknowledge how you're feeling. And there are probably many feelings that you're feeling at this point. You know, it may be a combination of apprehension with excitement, you're feeling fearful or sad, and some of that you're feeling all of those things all at the same time. And again, it's okay. You know, emotions are meant to move and flow. And by noticing and acknowledging them, you allow those emotions to pass. You kind of can pass right through them. It's when these emotions get stuck or you don't let yourself feel them that it's harder to move through them and then get to the other side. So this stop, notice, and acknowledge cycle can be done when you're feeling like really big emotions.
Mhm.
And I also recommend that you do it really throughout the day. Like maybe in the morning, just stop and notice, how am I feeling right now? And then acknowledge that feeling. Okay, that's a normal feeling. And maybe do it, you know, after lunch. And you're probably feeling different things at lunch. Again, these emotions flow and move. So just take some time to check in with yourself and really acknowledge where you're at right now. The second step is to spend some time reflecting. So really honor yourself as a business owner. You know, what did this business mean to you? What impact did you have on others? Maybe what impact did you have on your employees? What impact did you have on your clients? You know, what are some of the things that you're most proud of? What learnings do you want to take from this experience? Maybe how have you grown and developed through running this business? Or even like, how are you different as a person now since you started the business? You know, what do you want to acknowledge about yourself? And so doing this reflection in a very purposeful manner can help you move through that grief process. And as you've had the chance and opportunity to do that reflection and move through that process, you can then start to look to the future. And that's kind of the third step of the framework, thinking about what's next for you. You know, what is your vision of your future? What celebration can you plan to commemorate, you know, the sale of your business? This is a huge accomplishment and really one that you've been planning for a long time. And you may also be in a spot where you want to even envision, you know, what's the next chapter for the business you're selling? Like, what do you want for that new owner? You know, what impact is the business going to have on others? So spend time envisioning for yourself as well as envisioning what the future could look like for your business. So I will just wrap up with saying you are so much more than just a business owner. And going through this process can help you move through the loss of selling your business and get you into a mindset of gratitude and looking ahead to the future and to your next chapter.
Okay, great. Thank you, Mandy. That's wonderful. This next question is for Nermeen Jasani. Nermeen is a lawyer turned business consultant. She has worked with hundreds of businesses, whether they're starting out or in the growth phase or they're exiting. She brings logical, analytical point of views to business owners and foolproof action steps and plans that lead to quick, tangible results. And Lord knows, as business owners, we love that and need that in our corner. So with that, Nermeen, if I were going to sell my business, when should I start thinking about doing that? When should
Yeah,
I start?
that's such a great question, Sam. So, I'm sure we all have heard some horror story about some business owner that got sick at some point and had to do a fire sale of the business because there was no one in place. There was no succession planning. There was no, here's what happens when in place. And so you definitely don't want to be in that situation because what essentially happens is, sharks smell the blood and they will come after your business and they will, the thing that you spent so much time working on, right? Your baby, as Sam referred to, they're really just going to try to like piecemeal your baby as much as they can. So you don't want to be in that situation. Now, one of the things that, a lot of times as advisors that we talk about is if you should start with the end in mind. So if the end in mind is to sell your business or to be acquired by another business or to merge with another business, whatever that form of, using this as your nest egg looks like for you, you want to go with that end in mind. So you want to already have a plan in place of, all right, once we hit a certain target number of annual revenue sales, or once we hit, 100 employees or 10 locations, or, some sort of tangible number. Notice I'm giving you guys tangible numbers. Oftentimes, as business owners, we're like a little floaty pie in the sky. Well, I'll retire when I'm ready, or, I'll stick it out until, whenever, some point that like never actually comes to fruition. So you definitely want to have like something that is like set in stone. You can always move it if you choose to move it, but at least go into it with a mentality of, this is where I want things to be when I start thinking about selling, because that way you're always going to be thinking about it. It's not going to come as a surprise to you. Your feelings won't be hurt if someone tries to buy you out or anything like that. It's just the reality of what good business planning actually looks like. And as business owners, we try to maintain control over things. So if you're like me and you're a little bit on the control freak side, then absolutely like have these numbers in place ahead of time so that you know what direction you want to move in, and like what things are going to look like when you hit that sort of guidepost, right? Or that mile marker. Now, the other thing that we say is, make sure you have in the room with you a lot of advisors, because it's not enough to just have a business consultant in the room. It takes many, many pieces when it comes to selling a business. You've got to get a financial valuation expert in. You've got to get an attorney in. You've got to have your estate planner and your financial planner on board, right? And you need someone like Mandy to coach you through the process, to help you transition out. So, please understand that as you are going through this process, there are going to be people that you need along the way. And the scary thing that I see a lot of business owners doing is, they don't know that person. And so like, maybe they come in late in the game, maybe the chemistry is not right with the two of you, whatever it is, like you want to choose your team. It's sort of like you're the quarterback and you get access to all the best players, right? Like you want to pick, the Gronkowskis, right? You don't want to end up with someone who's, fourth string and, 95th draft pick, right? You want to be able to choose like your A players on your team when you get to that point. And as you're starting to approach that point, starting to have conversations around it, you definitely want to give yourself enough time to have those conversations as well. And please, if you are married, have those conversations. Don't just walk in one day and say, honey, I'm going to sell the business and retire tomorrow, because that won't be a very good day for either of you. So, there's conversations to have along the way. Yes, there are important business conversations to have, but this is going to affect every part of your life, not just business, but also personal.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Thank you. And yeah, we a lot of times will help clients see that it's going to, you gave a great football analogy, which I still didn't really understand, but I'm not a big football person. But I do understand that, when the analogy of a business owner is also, should think of themselves more of the owner of the team.
Mhm.
Right? The owner of the team. And then he's going to hire the coach and all of the right coaching staff to bring to fruition what he or she wants to have for that team. And it's very similar with a business, right? You need to have the right players on the team that are collaborating. And that you're not just talking to individually. They should be talking to one another. So everyone's on the same page to make sure that we are working at the pleasure of the owner of this business to get this all done. So that's great. That's really great advice. Thank you. So I'm going to move us along to Mrs. Cherish Dela Cruz in her expertise to keep us rolling here. And so a lot of people on the call know who Cherish is, but just to give her introduction, right? She is an estate planning and elder care attorney. She also is a business succession attorney. And she is licensed in Florida and in Georgia, which is important because a lot of our clients are in Florida and Georgia. And she helps families and business owners create life and business plans that prevent unnecessary stress, save money, and leave a lasting legacy for their families and for their businesses. And so, Cherish, the questions I have for you are, first off, how do I transition my business to my family, or get it ready to sell, especially in a legal way that's going to actually hold up?
Well, I think it's, well, I really do think that this is a series of conversations that you have with your intended people. So let's just take, for example, a family-owned business. You need to start planting those seeds, and they're really seeds that you need to cultivate and grow over time. Going back to what Nermeen was saying, and having the right team of advisors is critical, because you're right, you don't want to be late in the game in doing that. So one of the ways that I have seen and I have structured it depends on whether it's a family-owned business or if it's somebody purchasing, if it's private equity and somebody's purchasing it outside, which is always an option, or is it internal and a key employee is purchasing the business or purchasing shares. So first you have to kind of look at the corporate structure. What does it say? And, it all depends on if it's an LLC, or how it's structured that you can buy into it. Now, let's just take, for example, a family-owned business. Generally, I've worked with a lot of family-owned businesses, and it is difficult to have that first conversation. But then it's also getting in the expert and figuring out how much, this is key for everybody, but how much is that business worth? Whoever is purchasing it, whether it's a family member or a key employee or private equity, that is the basis and the foundation for that. And then what I do as an attorney is we take that valuation and we say, okay, how are we going to structure the deal? Because we need to know what in coordinating with the CPA, with the financial advisor, with the either business consultants and strategists, and also just like figuring out what the next chapter in our life is, we need a team approach in how to do that. And so legally, we put the pieces in place, but you need to get with somebody who understands all of the nuances. So the mindset piece, the letting go of the baby piece, and then, the actual practical day-to-day, but also the planning piece that allows you to build value over time. Just exactly what Nermeen was saying in terms of you never ever, and I really advocate for this because I've seen it done so many times. You never want to have a fire sale. It is the most stressful environment that you can be in. And just like Nermeen was saying, your competitors can, instead of getting, 4 times the value of your company, that you don't have that because you get pennies on the dollar because you didn't take that active role in planning. And this is just something that I just try to start thinking about when even I'm starting to counsel business owners. So, but yeah, putting in it's looking at the right corporate form, getting the right team in place, figuring out how much it's worth and how much the successors, the people who are buying the interest in your company, are going to pay for it.
Mm-hmm. Okay, that's really helpful. And I know a big question for business owners sometimes is what's the tax situation here? Like, how can we, if I know what my plan is and we are planning and I know where I want it to go, if I want it to go to the kids, or I want to set it up to sell to an outside buyer, how can I get the most out of the business without paying the most in taxes?
And this is a very nuanced question and specific to each individual company. And so what I'm going to advise for business owners is getting that team in place way ahead of time, because you cannot plan for long-term, especially in this new administration with this new environment, you need to plan way ahead of time. There are some buyers who get approached by businesses and because of a certain situation, maybe it's a fire sale, or but the more time you have, the more tax planning you can do. There's creative ways that you can specifically structure your business so that it passes on to your family members maybe, or the other potential owners, the other successors, in a way that is most tax efficient for you. But it's not just me and the business owner. It involves having someone like you, Sam, as a financial advisor to see what kind of financial strategies can be implemented so that we reduce that tax liability. And then also having a CPA coordinate on the back end.
Mhm.
But a
Yeah.
CPA, I mean, and these are all people that need to be seasoned in what they are doing. This is not, just like we were saying, we want the best experts around us. You need to have somebody who understands those technical and different practical nuances for a good
Right.
sale.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, there's many times, and I'm sure you all have seen it too, where someone has a great CPA or someone who does their taxes, right? Or they've got a business consultant there, they've got an attorney, but they don't, or a financial advisor too, and they just don't specialize in this space with or have the experience of working with a business owner on succession planning, because it's a whole different animal from just buying stocks versus doing just taxes every year and trying to do the best on income taxes, or trying to grow the business. Selling it is a whole nother strategy, right? When it comes to doing all that work. So just making sure you've got the right people on the team. We've a lot of times suggested to clients to switch out some players, switch out some coaches and some advisors because they just aren't up to task. And that's okay. That's okay. But it does take some professionals that are seasoned in this space. So thank you for that. So I'm going to just chime in with some of the work that we do on our side as wealth management advisors. So just to sort of reintroduce myself, Samantha Haloko with Northwestern Mutual. I've been a wealth management advisor with them for a number of years. I've been total with them for about 22 years. And I work mostly with business owners and people who are transitioning into retirement, or very focused on those things, because we really focus more on distribution planning, right? So when you think of wealth management, you think of, a lot of times people think of growing, right? Putting money in their 401k and putting money into their stock portfolios, buying real estate, building their business to be valuable. And our main focus is that end game. Okay, when we retire, how are we now going to, do we have the assets positioned so that we can distribute? Is that, is the business valued at where it needs to be to reach our personal financial goals, right? Because behind every business, there's a family or a set of families that own it, especially in a privately held business. And so, really what we're, a lot of the questions that we get once we get that valuation number, or if we don't know it, again, Cherish, we got to find out, or we have to be in at least the right ballpark. So we can get soft valuations, but eventually we're going to need to get a hard valuation for it to really go to market. Really what my clients are typically asking when they're coming to that question about selling is this going to sell for enough money to meet my financial goals in time, right? And then how do we fund that? How do we make this happen? Right? So a lot of times what we'll do, and I think I've talked about this in the previous sessions, is that we will look at the overall financial plan of the owner or of the owners, right? And what is our goal? What do we want to do? How old are we? How long do we need to make money last? And what other assets do we have along the way? A lot of times the business is the largest asset that this person has. And so there may be some other liquid assets outside, or retirement accounts, or they've been putting into the 401k just to deduct on taxes, but it's not really the big item on the balance sheet, the business is. And so what we're trying to solve for, whether it's right before we sell, or, I work with a lot of people 10, 20 years out, right? What do I need to be doing to make sure that by a certain date or a certain age, I'm financially independent, right? So I can go start another business, hit the golf course, or just do or whatever I want to do and name my price, right? And so really we're running a financial analysis on, okay, if we have this asset, the net proceeds after tax from this business, how is that piece of the puzzle fitting with our other possible 401ks, IRAs, other investment accounts, real estate that we may own, our Social Security pensions, any other pensions we may have from a past life. And so we're really trying to get what the client wants and where they want to be from a lifestyle standpoint, and how much money we need to spend off from those assets in income. That's really where we're trying to get to when it comes to the financial plan. And so we can run that analysis to say, okay, based on where it is that you want to be, if you want to live off of $10,000 a month after tax, and you want a $20,000 travel budget every year, and you might pay yourself a small salary of something, but you don't. Or, hey, I want to know, I had one client that was like, I want to know, if I never work again after age 50, is this money going to run out? If we put it in something that's going to spin off a 4% rate of return, right? I mean, he wanted to know for sure. There's just no way in this world he was going to go, be destitute if he sold his business at age 50. And so we were able to run that for him in all these different ways. But that's really what you want to be able to measure. And then where you put it, right, that's just based on risk. We also want to make sure we're diversifying that, not only from an assets in a risk standpoint, but also a tax standpoint as well, right? Because that most of those proceeds are most likely going to go into places that are going to be taxable throughout time. And so our job is not only to help, we do a lot of that work, like Cherish was saying, is how can we build this and structure this buyout so that we can save as much in tax. We do get involved in that conversation, but hey, we may have another 30 or 40 or 50 years. We've got to mitigate taxes on this money. And so just making sure we've got access to the right tools to do that. The other thing that we run into, especially when it comes to passing on a business to either employees or onto family members that may be coming in as employees, that let's say it's the kids. I know we're running into this that we're trying to solve this problem right now for a client. He's got young children in their early 20s. They're all working in the business, and it's about a $10 million business. But if he wanted to retire or had to retire in 5 years, there's no way his kids could buy him out. There's just no financial way. And the bank is not going to loan them the money to do it because they just don't have any assets. They don't have any credit. They don't make any money. And they don't know how to take over the business, right? So we need someone like Nermeen to come in and help those adult children get up to speed and work with them to make sure that they can take on, for one, the responsibility of it, and have the skills, or hire the right people to make that possible. But then we also may have to have some sort of mechanism around it, where the parents are actually putting money away along the way for their kids to buy them out. I know that sounds strange, but it's more efficient than showing up on the day we need to sell it and hoping we can get a $10 million loan. Right. And a lot of times we don't want to be the one that's loaning the money back to them at that time. Because if the parent dies, it can be a mess. Like there's just all kinds of, right. So we not only have to have the plan, right, but we've got to have a way to fund that plan, right? We've got to have mechanisms in place. And usually we're using cash inside the business anyway, right? The money is all staying in control, in the business owner's control. It's all staying inside the business anyway, or inside trust. So if, God forbid, something happens to them along the way and we do have to sell this thing, now at least, Nermeen has a influx of cash that we can go hire a CFO and get this thing figured out. So we can sell this and keep the business going, right? And keep it profitable while we figure out how we're going to sell it when the key person is not there. Right. And so, so anyway, we also need to make sure that, okay, great, we have the plan, but now how do we make sure that it comes to fruition by the time we want to be out of here, and that if something tragic happens along the way, like a disability or death of a key person or an owner, that this plan can still come to fruition as well. So, so I want to open it up to questions. I don't know if we have questions here in the chat.
I know there was a question, and I kind of wanted to just touch on what you said as well too. So in terms of, structuring the deal from a legal perspective, sometimes it will be some sort of promissory note from the existing company to potential buyers. But making sure, so, and really what that is just from a basic fundamental standpoint is, if you do not have enough money to finance the value of this $10 million business, some companies will choose to self-finance. And you need to have a legal mechanism in place where you can capture that money, and that in the event that something does happen to those people who are supposed to pay that money, that there is this added layer of protection. So, like what we were saying, there's multiple steps involved in this process. So that, when you're thinking, okay, I want to buy this business in 6 months, that's really challenging. So, and so I just want you to realize that there's layers upon layers of plans that need to be put in place and coordinated and ticked and tied so that everything can be as smooth of a transition as possible. It is our job as this team of advisors on this call to do all of that. But when you're working with a very short deadline, honestly, it's you can't do it, right? So like you can't, you can do it, but you can't do it well. And so this is where I'm saying the proactive planning is in place. But just going back to that, I know we had one question before, but if you have a family business, and Mandy, this question is for you, and just everyone else jump in, but how do you start to have that conversation with family members? You want to exit, and you've been the head honcho of this company for a period of time. You want to leave it to your children, and you believe your children are competent and they can do it, but how do you actually start those seeds of the conversation?
Such a good question. And I think it's similar to kind of a similar theme as to what we've been talking about today. And that is like, start preparing early. So start those conversations early. Really spend some time thinking about, what's important to you as the business owner, and starting to talk to your family members about, and really understand what's important to them. Like, the first question is, do they actually want to take over the business? Because maybe they don't. Maybe they have no interest in that whatsoever. So I think the number one thing is to not make assumptions that, you only know what's in your head. You don't know what's in your family members' heads unless you start asking those questions. And in having those questions, really going in with the perspective of being curious, of trying to understand. We all take our businesses very personally, like we said before, blood, sweat, and tears. We've put a lot of time into growing these, and cultivating the business. And if your kids don't want to be a part of it, trying not to take that personally. Now, you may run into other situations where, yes, multiple kids would like to take that over. And I think that the more and the earlier that you have those conversations, the better it is. But really, truly trying to understand what is what is ideal for everyone, and then try to work your plan around that.
Mhm. Yeah.
And just to add to that point, I was thinking about family harmony in family businesses. So sometimes you may find that there will be multiple children who are technically in the business, but one is doing the day-to-day operations. And where does that person fit on the bus, right? So, think of your business as being on a bus, and who's going to be the next driver of that bus. And it's really candid conversations, but also structuring it in a legal way so that if you feel that your oldest daughter is most fitted for driving and becoming the CEO of that company, that she does acquire the most shares so that she has majority say, and that these not only legal contemplations are discussed and drafted in the contract, but also discussed among everybody, because there have been plenty of situations where family businesses will fall apart in the second or third generation because they haven't had those hard conversations.
Yep. Yeah. And we see it too, where a lot of times the parents want to be fair when it comes to assets. And sometimes the kids just want to be in because of that's where the money is, right? If we've got this $10 million business, but there's not really anything else that's there, there's ways that you can level the financial playing field for all of the children without giving all of them the control of the business. If really that one child is the one that's going to take it and run with it, there's ways to still compensate the other children, and make sure they get their fair share of mom and dad's wealth when they pass. But then that one child's really going to take the business and run. And the other ones are going to take the other assets that are of equal value on paper and run. And then they have it. And so there's ways to do that without causing too much trouble. And like you said, the harmony is really important. When money is involved, the harmony can go away really fast, unfortunately.
Yeah, I mean, this is such an important question, especially for anyone who watches Succession on HBO. I mean, it's the perfect example of how not to, actually do business succession planning. And, you definitely want to be considerate of the family members, but also just be honest with yourself, who's actually a good fit for that. Approach it from a non-parent, non-emotional, non-biased standpoint. Don't remember that, Timmy let the dog die because he forgot to feed him or something like that. Don't carry that stuff into it. Just look at it from a purely objective standpoint as much as you can in that situation. But that's where someone like Mandy would come in really, really key, because they can help you think about that person objectively rather than all the emotional stuff that happened around that one child. So it is an incredibly important question. And just as a statistic to throw out there, almost of the businesses that are around small businesses, many of them are small family businesses. Now, the amount that carry over to the third generation of family owned businesses is less than 10%. It's a really scary number because conversations like this aren't being had with family members ahead of time. And everyone's not on the same page about, what's going on, and also just a little bit of unrealistic expectations maybe possibly happening. So, just something to keep in mind as you are thinking about selling your business, or as you are listening to your colleagues and your coworkers talk about, situations that they're coming across with their clients. It really is you got to get a 10,000 foot view of what things look like, and get that view early. Don't wait too long to get that view.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, good point. There was a question that we got ahead of time, which I think Nermeen really answered before, but I think it's worth saying again, is just what is that professional team that you need to have yourself surrounded by? if you are considering selling your business, or you know that you have a valuable business that is worth something that should be sold at some point, right? Whether you're ready to do that 20 years from now, or, yeah, hopefully not 6 months from now, as Cherish was saying. So, I mean, really, that is, someone like Mandy, right, to help figure out, okay, what is it that I want, making sure that I'm on the right mindset, and when should that be? And then someone like Mermeen to figure out from the inside with the business of how are we making sure that this business is financially healthy, right? And it is marketable to someone, right? And then someone like Cherish, who is
Lose Sam for a minute.
I think we did.
So,
Um,
frozen.
yeah, I think so. Well, yeah, just plugging in and making sure that, we're ticking and tying and coordinating from a buy sell perspective, like the structure, and definitely how we're going to fund that legal structure with somebody like Sam. So, and really this is, and I think this is my compliance background as well too. It's just ticking and tying everything and making sure that everything is coordinated and good, and making sure that that there's, you've thought about the process, you've vetted the people who are going to surround you in that process, and then you actually do the process with the right people. So, I mean, I think that's just, the key takeaways that we want you to have. And just in wrapping this up, because I think we did lose Sam, do we have any questions from the attendees?
You can throw it in the chat box if you
Yeah.
would like.
Yeah.
The only other thing I'll add to this is I think it's really important as you are selecting advisors to make sure that you are looking in your industry for that advisor. So if it's someone who is selling a manufacturing business, because many manufacturing businesses are still family owned, make sure that your valuation expert is familiar with manufacturing. Like, you don't want them to just have done tech software evaluations in Silicon Valley, and then all of a sudden they're coming in and trying to do a manufacturing, business valuation. I don't care what they say. I don't care if they say, oh, they're all the same. No, they're not. Please do yourself the favor and find someone who is like the expert in your specific industry. Same if you're selling a medical practice. Don't work with someone who's never sold or valued a medical practice before. Go to the experts in that specific field.
Yes, definitely. And then also, so some people think about selling a business as in, if you are a solopreneur or you only have 2 or 3 members, which I know that there's a lot of law firms who think like this, that there is no value. And that is completely incorrect, especially also medical practices. I think they both fall into this fallacy of this fiction where you can't sell your medical practice because you're the one-man band. But that's not true. If you have the right processes in place that, Nermeen will help you, implement, and you have the right people who are helping you, every business has value, and just marketed the right way, with the right systems. There is, just because you retire doesn't mean your business has to retire with you. It's corporations were created to be perpetual, and your company or law firm or medical practice can be the same way.
And I would jump in to say too that selling your business doesn't have to be the end for you. That doesn't have to be retirement. You could start another business after that. Whatever your goals and ambitions are, it's not an end. It's just really flipping to a next chapter. So it's okay, this is done now, and now I'm going to focus in this area. And that actually aligns nicely because next week we're going to have our final session in the transition series where we're really going to focus on retirement and talk about what does that look like, or what might it look like for you? What do you want that to look like? And how do you set yourself up for that next chapter in your life?
Awesome. Well, since there are no other questions, and I know Sam's having a little bit of a technical challenge, we just thank you everybody for joining us today. This was fantastic, and thank you for supporting our series. If you know of anyone who would like this recording, we're always happy to share it. We'll be posting it on YouTube and some other media channels. But thank you for everyone attending, and we hope to see you. It's next Friday. Wait, when is it?
It's next Friday, and it's in the morning, so it's an early session.
Yeah, it's an early session, so 7:30. So if you can't make it, we can still offer you the recording. And yeah, thank you for being here today. We appreciate it.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.